Are the Miami Dolphins finally looking to upgrade the tight end position? And we are also going to talk about Tyreek Hill and his comments on the pivot. Was he implying that there is some dysfunction currently within the Miami Dolphins defense? Plus, we're going to talk about Christian Wilkins. We are also going to talk about Jerome Baker. Man, we got a lot to cover. We're even going to talk about Tua Tagovailoa's extension a little bit and a lot more. So please do us the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. As always, let's get into this.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, that open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
All right, huddle up, huddle up. We're gonna crank these engines up on one. All right? Wait, set. Drivers, start your engines.
This is the Finish Line.
I coached some great offensive linemen in the past. Larry Little, Dwight Stevenson, Jim Langer, all Hall of Famers, and Richmond Webb belongs to that same group.
Here are your hosts, legendary Miami Dolphins left tackle Richmond Webb, Reason, and Mr. Ballgame.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. Please, as you're coming through, already 320 of you in the room, smash the like button, subscribe. If you are new, as we welcome you in to the Finish Line. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, the legendary Richmond Webb, the triple OG, Mr. Ballgame, who I'm sure is going to have a lot to say because a lot of moves have happened on his favorite side of the football. So we're going to talk about all that. Gentlemen, the AFC East, I don't even want to just say the Dolphins after we've seen the Bills get rid of Poyer, Mitch Morse, and Tre'Davious White today, as well as restructuring Von Miller. The AFC East landscape is changing because you look at our defense, gentlemen, no X, no Baker, no Wilkins for now, at least on those two. So cultures are changing. It's shifting in the AFC East. How are y'all feeling this week as we are literally 7 days away from the new year starting in the NFL and free agency opening?
I'm good. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, everybody listening in. You bringing up great points, but realistic. So it's a good time for fans, but sometimes it's not a good time for fans because decisions like this have to be made, and not only by organizations but by players, making a decision. But we'll get into that, I'm sure, during the show. But great week. Like you said, we're a week away from free agency, so definitely curious about how the Dolphins are going to approach that, attack that, and look like they already started to make moves to clear cap space and stuff like that. And you read the comments in the media and stuff like that. So the fireworks have already started. So definitely looking forward to it. And this is my time of year too. I like watching March Madness, so that should be jumping off as well. So it's a good time of year. It ain't football season, but at least I got something to kind of.
What a time to be alive for Richmond is what he's trying to tell you guys right now.
And I didn't even gardening reason. So yeah, I'm in a good space. But other than that, man, all is well. And I see Mr. Ballgame and put his lokes on, so I'm gonna turn it over to him. How you doing, Mr. Ballgame?
To be honest with you, I'm in a really weird space right now. I see the moves the team's making. I've told myself repeatedly over and over again that I'm not going to question what they got going on and just support to some degree and try to understand some of the moves. But it seems like nothing's really getting done when we have deadlines that have to be met in regards to certain things. And I get if Jerome didn't want to restructure his contract. I get that. But I also look at the landscape of who's out there and think to myself, what's the plan to fill these holes? Because Tindall's not going to be able to do it by himself. And Long is a run guy. He's not a pass coverage guy. And we don't have a lot of draft picks unless they just have a full-fledged plan of getting rid of 21 and moving back. All these questions about how you're going to fill all these holes and where your veteran leadership going to come from at this point now, because Christian's going up front. I get that a lot of those guys are signed through this next season, but at the same time, that a lot of things that's changing that were familiar and comfortable pieces that I felt could hold and keep things together through this whole process. It's just I don't know. It's a little weird right now for me, but I haven't lost faith yet that they have a plan. I can't see the vision just yet, and for me that's a little frustrating, especially from the coaching side of things, because I know how important experience is. Even if a guy isn't a guy that you're in love with, if the guy shows up every day, if the guy shows up every week and he does his job, that says a lot about what he can offer you. And I don't like question marks, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But like Richmond said, it's a good time. It's the only time I get excited for basketball, really, because college basketball offers something the NBA doesn't. You kind of get completely like burnt out of watching the pros take nights off and all this stuff, and they getting paid millions of dollars to play the game. And the only kid I know right now that don't take nights off is Shy and Jokic. You know what I'm saying? Them guys can give you, you're gonna get your money worth going to see them. The rest of these yahoos, you know what I'm saying, they doing management and all sorts of other foolishness. So I'm glad March Madness is times around, and then before you know it, we'll be at the draft. So just glad to be a part of the process. Always good to be able to talk with y'all and, you know what I'm saying, talk with the people in the chat and stuff, because it's crazy right now. So.
Man, right now it's we're loaded up, man. We got about between YouTube and Twitter right now, we got about over 700 people watching right now. We got about 300 people on YouTube and about 400 people on Twitter. Appreciate all you coming through. Okay, so let's get into this then, because there's a few things I want to get your guys. First of all, before we get your guys, first of all, we talk about the linebacker situation there, and with the linebacker situation, I got to say this: there's guys out there. I mean, a guy I liked last year in free agency, he went for the cheap. Drew Tranquill, he's available. You know what I mean? I honestly think Patrick Queen is in play, and I think the structure is going to be backloaded because David Long only has 1 year left. I'm not sitting here and promoting it. I'm not sitting here and saying that's the best, but I guarantee you that's in play right now. I guarantee you linebacker is in play. Now, the guy that I want is Frankie Lavu from the Panthers. I want him at the trade deadline. When I did Fin Too Deep show before the trade deadline, we did my top targets, and he was one of my top targets. I like Frankie. I think what he brings here would be perfect, and I don't think he's going to cost as much as a Patrick Queen would cost, but here we are. Now, all right, so, a lot of people, and another thing too is, guys, I want to get your thoughts on this before we get into the main topics here. With doesn't it feel like Anthony Weaver's already starting to put his thumbprint on this culture? Like, Jerome Baker's gone. Christian Wilkins are gone. The joking is gone, right? Like I've said this before. I'll say it again. Guys, Christian Wilkins didn't intimidate no one. Josh Allen used to literally laugh him off. Okay? Josh Allen would laugh him off and get right back in his face. Jerome Baker with the mama thing. Jerome Baker ain't out here intimidating no one. It feels like the culture is shifting because remember, other than Christian Wilkins, who he did mention, obviously he wouldn't at the level he plays at, Anthony Weaver in his introductory press conference, he didn't talk about Xavier Howard. He didn't talk about Jerome Baker being parts of this defense. Their names were not dropped. So what are you guys' thoughts on this? Do you guys feel like this is Anthony Weaver starting to put his thumbprint on this defense? Because it's, hey, play ball or go, basically, in terms of financially. What are your thoughts, Richmond Ballgame?
Yeah, I think anytime you bring in a coordinator offensively, defensively, you're going to have some guys that are already under contract that's going to be there. So you got to kind of maneuver or work with them. But there are going to be some guys that's on the bubble that I think as a coach, you got to give that guy some type of input to say, okay, either this guy fits what I'm trying to do or he doesn't fit what I'm doing, whether it's offense, defense, or whatever. And at that point, he's probably got other people that he likes more, this and that. And I think that's a conversation that happens between, the coordinator, the head coach, and possibly and of course the GM, because that's the money guy that's got to say, okay, if we let this guy go, who are you liking, who you want to bring in? And then they got to say, okay, he's got to fit into some type of slot window or whatever. You can't put all your money on defense or offense. It's all got to work together. So that at the end of the day, when you're a new coordinator or whatever, and you're coming in, you got to have some type of say so, because if it don't work, you're the first guy probably out the door before some of the players and stuff like that. So if you're gonna bring a guy in, I think he has to have some type of input. So if that's not the type of player that he sees fitting his system, or he likes some other guys better, you're gonna see some changes and stuff like that. So I definitely hope so. And I think with Coach McDaniel, I think he's learning this stuff. Is that okay? If you're gonna be my defense coordinator, my offense coordinator, those guys got to have input as well, because those are the guys that you're trusting to, do their job. So yeah, I definitely think he has his hand or thumbprint on what's going on, this and that. And it's, from what I read, it might be a possible that Baker possibly could, based on what they said in the paper. I don't know, but I think it was something about the back end or something. He was willing to restructure, but
he was.
Some of the numbers were
basically
right.
What happened was he had already restructured. Remember when they got Chubb? Remember when they traded for Bradley Chubb? Baker had to restructure when they did that. So he's already restructured for us before. He had agreed to restructure, but they couldn't come to an agreement on a term. And I know they had even discussed an extension with him, like the way they had discussed it. They've discussed it with Tyreek Hill. Not a bunch of new money, but more so spreading money out over years, like not a pay increase. And I know they obviously couldn't come to an agreement with that. So yeah, there was legitimate discussion about that. Just like with Wilkins, like people don't realize, with Wilkins, they've even discussed a 1-year deal. Like if we can't franchise tag you, would you be interested in a 1-year deal? Like they've actually discussed this stuff. Like they've looked at every option. So
okay. Which I think you do, and that's why I say sometimes you got to let it shake out. But player, like you're saying, and you look at it from Baker's, you say, okay, I've already restructured, so I'm working with y'all. Now you're asking me to restructure, and he probably wants something, and that's where it gets sticky. So, brother,
his cap hit this year was $14.7 million. He is not a $15 million linebacker. He's an $8 million linebacker. I'm not even being funny. I'm being serious. Like,
no,
that's like double his market value almost. You know what I mean? Like, that's not good business,
Yeah.
So I agree. I see it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Ballgame? Because I know you're ready to go.
I think it's all the same when you factor in and looking at player productivity and how these players view themselves against their mates across the league. Nobody ain't gonna convince me that Dak Prescott is a $60 million quarterback.
No, I agree.
But at some point, You know what I'm saying? These guys hold true to how they see themselves. I'm all about the business first. So if a guy feels like he's worth more than what the team is willing to offer him for his services, then you go see if you can get it somewhere else. I'm okay with that. Jerome's always been my guy because I think I'll always root for the underdogs. I root for guys that I'm all about rooting for the third, fourth, and fifth round guys because I know that a lot of times those are the guys that are the actual fiber of your team. Those are the guys that more or less won't wash out and be the guys that last longer. If you look at it historically in the league, most first round picks don't last long as the second, third, and fourth, fifth round guys. Because they don't have the work ethic. They've been handed a lot of things most of the time in their careers, and they never had to be the guy that had to go and get it out the mud. They was always the first guy out, first guy picked, all those type of things. But when adversity hits and their body starts to break down, they never had the resilience to push through things. And, so I always say to guys that don't, in my mind, Baker's always been one of those guys. So for me, I'm okay with him saying to them, "Oh man, yeah, I just don't want to lose money," you know what I'm saying? But they'll figure it out, I guess. You know what I'm saying? If they have an open door for him to come back and then sit down at the table again, and that tells me that so they do want him here. They just was what they're willing to pay for him to be here, and that's just the business side of it. So I'm okay with that. As far as what Weaver is doing in terms of putting his stamp on thing, I think he'd be crazy not to come in with a wish list of guys that he feels without a shadow of a doubt would essentially enhance what he wants to run on defense and guys that are probably a little bit better fit. So, because if he doesn't do that, then you're just shooting off into the, you're just shooting off into the dark and hoping to hit something. That's never going to work out long term for you. So he's got to have if he's smart, he has a list and he's provided Greer with it and said, okay, if we get into a space where we're not going, even if it comes down to what's available in the draft, you don't want to go too young because you already got some guys that you got to develop, right? You still got a whole lot of situations they got to manage and figure out with AVG, what's happening with him. And Christian's going to test the market, but in the same sense, you can't deplete the entire room and then think that, you bring in a whole bunch of brand new guys and then get them up to speed in a matter of 3.5 months. It's going to be another grueling process. They already got to endure. Most of the guys on the back end probably stay the same, and you got some pieces up front, but we got to find edges too. Somebody got to rush the quarterback. All these things while these guys are healing up and whatnot. So Weaver's got a big, huge mountain to climb, in a short amount of time. So he has I think what he's going to have to do more than anything is find guys that are already right there, but just never had the opportunity to be the guy and take it to the next level type of thing. And Tranquil, one of those guys that really played well for Kansas City, you know what I'm saying? But I knew that, when they lost, he came in and they picked him up when Bolton got hurt. You know what I mean? And he plugged in and he stayed healthy for them throughout the run until Nick Bolton got back. But, it's just like anything else. They already had their guy. Bolton's their guy. So once the season's over, now he's available again. But, the guy's 27.
Willie Gay's available too.
That's the guy I be going to get. That's the dog right there. Now, without a shadow of a doubt, if I'm gonna go put my money out there and bring in a linebacker, Gay is at the top of the list for me because that boy can do it all. He can cover your tight end, he can cover your slot, he gonna get in there and bang in the run game, he gonna do all these different things for you, and he ain't gonna cost you a whole bunch of money to get it done. And he shows up to work. As long as he's healthy, that boy is productivity at its finest, and he can run with the best of them too. Like, he is fast. You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't have a problem with the other guy you said too, Luvu. I think Luvu is a perfect. He'd be a perfect guy to sit right there in the middle of the defense also and be able to plug holes and stop things in the run game. Plus, he offers you a little bit more of what David Longdale offered you in the pass coverage. I just don't think that. With Brian Burns down there, they centered everything in that defense down there around what Burns could do, and everybody else just plays fucking fiddle to it. Even with Shaq, you know what I'm saying? With Shaq Thompson down there.
Walk, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just.
Did you guys see all the cuts on Buffalo today? Did you guys see what happened to Buffalo today?
Yeah, they gotta get rid of them. They gotta get young though. Buffalo gotta get young.
Well, and they're also the cap strapped to us, right? But look at Poyer.
Yeah.
Positioned himself to come here. Now he's cut 1 year later. I'm telling you, at the right price, I'd be calling Mitch Morse their center. I mean, that's a Pro Bowl center right there. I'd be calling him and I'd saying, hey, because you know what's funny? Honestly, man, Imagine if you could get a couple of those Bills players on the cheap, and you can say, so you can come here and stick it to the Bills, eh? Because you know players are about that, eh? At the right cost, if you make the money right, they're about it. Why not? You know?
No, they're not about that reason. Come on, man. We don't think like that. Come on,
Come
man.
on, son. Come on, son. Come on, son. Taryn Langhover gifted 1 NFL membership. Appreciate you, Taryn. Knight says, I like that our first move was a pass-catching tight end and a DT that Weaver knows. All we can do is put our faith in Mike and Weaver. Well, Jonnu's not locked in, so don't get too excited yet. Taryn says, all I know is I would much rather have Dan Ginkle back than pay Baker. Ginkle is far more crucial to the backbone of this team. And then John C. donates $50, and he says, good evening, team. Keep up the great work. Appreciate that, sir.
50 piece. I see you.
Really hated Jerome Baker, but you're going to miss him when he's gone.
It depends on who you replace him with.
They still got to learn. It's going to be a long, there's always, regardless of who it is, there's always a learning curve.
Not if it's Patrick Queen.
Always.
Not if it's Patrick Queen.
He's one.
I don't even agree with Patrick Queen. I think Patrick Queen's overrated, and I think a team paying him $18 million is nuts. Because you look at his play before Roquan showed up. I would never. Yeah. I would never.
Agent Zero, in my opinion, is the reason they had the success on defense that they had. Yeah, because prior to him showing up, they were average. They were average at best. They had 44 Humphrey, and they had that's really it. That's the only person you could really name over there that really was a guy that was every year, consistent for a while. But then when they added Agent Zero, when he came over from Chicago, the whole defense transformed. And Patrick Queen didn't have to go through that whole process of making the calls anymore. He could play free because he didn't have that responsibility. That tells me a lot right there. So I wouldn't give him those 16, 18 million. That definitely won't happen. Not me.
That's what he's projected to get paid, and I don't think so. I'm good. Yes, overrated for 16, 18 million. Yes. Patrick Queen is like a $10 million player, $12 million player. Frankie LaVue is going to be coming in at like $10 to $11 to $12 million, and I'd take Frankie LaVue right now all day. All right, so let's get into one of the topics here. Man, this is going to be good. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. This clip has been circulating, and, Tyreek, he just he just don't stop, huh? The thing, he's like the Energizer Bunny, bro. You just throw a battery in him, and he just keeps rifling off his mouth. So, he's like my 5-year-old. When she sees something she likes, you got to ask 50 questions. Just don't stop. So, because, between, I don't know if you guys saw, between what happened with that model who broke her leg and, you know what I mean, and all the baby mamas showing up, this is starting to become a little bit of just a tiny bit of a distraction here, you know what I mean? And then you got him out here. We should be talking about winning championships, not about females breaking their legs because you're trying to smash them at your house. All right, so let's get into this. And let's see, you like that? I just caught up. So this is, tell me I'm wrong. What he flies out of mother to his camp for what? To play touch football? Stop. We all know. Yeah, they're playing touch sheet football. That's what they were. Okay. So this is what he said, man. And you know what? I'm going to address this because you guys haven't heard my stance on this. He's married to the sister of an NFL safety. She knows the game. She understands the game. And I ain't talking about football. Right? Yeah, first of all, I got to say, yeah, exactly. I've seen what this. Listen, I think Tyreek hit a grand slam with his wife. I think she's absolutely phenomenal, like absolute dime piece. So if you want to go out and eat McDonald's hamburgers when you got a steak at home, that's your prerogative. But we know she knows what the game is, and that's just what it is. So let's throw the 2K yards out the window. Stop inviting IG models and mothers to come over. And start focusing on catching footballs because you've had a lot of key drops and a lot of big games. And let's start winning some playoff games, all right? You're out here telling everyone there's no excuses, but we're out here hearing nonsense continuously. So this is what Tyreek said, and I want to talk to you about this. We're going to start off with Richmond. And I'll tell you all why when we play this clip.
That's one thing that our quarterback he gonna add. You know what I'm saying? To it, because with Pat, we all had a relationship with Pat. Like we all hang out, we all, you know, do stuff outside of football. And in Miami, we're still building that. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't got to that yet. But I'm telling you, this year it's gonna get to that. Cause we done had some battles in there. You know what I'm saying already, but it ain't been a battle where it's like we can have a conversation, but then we can come back the next play and be like, hey, bro, I think you should do that. You know what I'm saying? It's been, nah, fuck you. And then I'll talk to you later. You know what I'm saying? Or the next week. And we don't need that. It need to be like, look, bro, we need to do this, yada, yada, yada. You need to get open. I need to be better. And then we need to come back and then talk about it, not have grudges against each other. Because we all trying to win.
That's the best
We
thing
all
to
trying
do.
to win, man. You know what I'm saying? Being able to have them tough conversations, you know what I'm saying, is needed, I feel like, bro. Because that got us better when Pat did it.
Yeah.
It made me want to kick his ass, but it made me want to get better, man.
All right. So basically he sits there and says that in the huddles, right, instead of them talking it out and saying, okay, you got to get open, they're throwing, you know, they're cursing at each other. He's implying that they don't talk for a few days or even a week. So implying they hold grudges. He's implying also that's how it was in Kansas City at first. And then Patrick Mahomes eventually adapted and changed that. And he said that's what needs to happen in Miami. Richmond, you've been in huddles plenty of time. Should you even be talking about this, Tyreek? Because anyway you sliced it, it wasn't going to sound good. I'm sure the PR team's just saying to themselves, oh, here we go again. And, okay, should he even be talking about that? And then what's your takeaway as someone who's been in huddles? I mean, you've seen Dan tell off receivers, I'm sure, dozens of times. What are your thoughts on what he just said?
I don't necessarily agree with everything he said. Some of the stuff, it works for some people and some people don't. I think everybody is different. The thing is when I was in Miami with the Dolphins, this and that, and he's right. Marino was a quarterback, and that's the way it's structured anyway. Anytime the quarterback is talking, normally, if you don't respect that guy, that's an issue. But we always respected Dan, this and that. So if he got on you, it was because he was trying to win. It's not necessarily he's not picking on you. It's not personal, this and that. And then we would have like a team Christmas party, this and that. But certain guys hung out that did some of the certain. I don't think everybody has to hang out. Now, what we would do a lot of times is me, the offensive line together, and you watch film with the coach, but we would go back some and watch and then kind of talk what we would see.
You're cutting up and you're cutting up and out pretty badly.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it still bad? Let me unhook it.
Yeah, it might be your headset. I'll let him figure that out. Ballgame, your thoughts on this?
I mean, to be honest, I watched that whole thing of him on the podcast over there with those boys, and there's some things I think always need to be kept in house. But at the same time, I think him telling the world that there is a process that has to come to teams getting great. I don't see anything wrong with that, because it's the same thing that I talk about all the time previously as a coach with my kids. I didn't give a shit if they didn't like each other, but they still had a job to do. And over time, as they work together to understand that each piece is intricately a part of their success and they have to fit together regardless of whether they want to or not, you're only going to be as successful as everybody coming to the table willing to do their job. So, guys, and you got to think they're still fairly new at this offense, fairly new with each other. Tyreek comes over from an established system already, and Waddle was here previously as the man. There might be a little resentment in regards to Waddle having to take a back seat to Tyreek. And also the fact of the matter is how not commanding of them that Tua probably wasn't that he's expecting him to be. But like he said, Pat had got to a point where they were all dysfunctional and whatnot. And Pat just said, listen, man, you either get on the program or, you know what I'm saying, you're going to be here and be a part of this, be a part of it all the way. Knock the bullshit off and let's get down to the business. I think as Tua develops, and like Reek said himself, he believes that's the step he's going to take this year. But I think he's just really just being open and honest about things that most NFL teams experience, especially when you get a new guy, a new star like Tyreek, who comes in, and after the first year, you've had some measure of success. The second year, you missed the goal of winning that playoff game. Things can get chippy, and they do start to look at it over at each other and say, "Man, you dropped the shit. You dropped the pass too." You know what I'm saying? Why the ball high to her? You know what I'm saying? Why is your ball high? All these different things, and there should be this space where they can come back at each other and hold each other accountable. As long as it's not counterproductive to the point, like he was saying, that they walking away and not speaking to each other for a week. That don't make sense to me, because you still got work to do. The game still got to be played. So you still got to trust and believe that the guy's gonna get you the ball where it's supposed to be, and that you're gonna run the route and catch the ball the way it's supposed to be caught. But I always told my guys, you know what I'm saying, you discuss it, you discuss, fight, and all that other foolishness in private. But when we come out of this locker room, we're all united. And when we don't have blow-ups on the sideline, so whatever y'all got going on, keep it to yourself. And then I don't give a shit what you do in the locker room. You can beat shit out of each other, but you better be ready to play, because otherwise you got to deal with me. That's the type of mentality that I think he's just trying to get these guys to just take the next step of saying, you know what, man, we can be mad at each other, but we got to get these guys off our ass first. Then we'll discuss this later. But let's win this game. Let's stay professional about this. The objective is the W type of thing. You know, now him on the Pivot podcast saying all this, and everybody, hundreds of thousands of people watching it, everybody's going to draw their own conclusions about it. But, you have to some degree have been in a situation in a locker room where you've seen that unfold. And I firsthand saw my quarterback going after his wide receivers and the running back being pissed off because the quarterback was throwing the ball too much. He felt, you know what I mean? And him over on defense. And my guys like, well, y'all the ones over there turning the ball over, and we always on the field. So, you know what I mean? There's all these different things. Everybody got some buy-in, especially towards trying to get the W. So, he
also bigged up Tua, right? Like he said, this year for Tua, this is like a build-on season. And he said, what did he say? Because this is obviously the best season of his career, and he's going to continue to add on to his game. Right. And he said he's got the skill set and he's got the supporting cast to do it. Right. Like he continued to back Tua and support Tua. It wasn't like he just threw it. People are trying to take it as he threw under the bus, when he's just basically saying,
take it that way.
The communication just isn't like
it's not there yet.
Perfect yet. That's right. All he's saying. Right. Like, you know what I mean? So, anyways, Richmond, hopefully your audio is picked up. Go back to what you're saying. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, I agree. Is that better, or it's still pretty choppy?
Now you're good. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I agree with what Ballgame said. At the end of the day, sometimes you got to stop talking and be a leader by example, and that's how I always try to lead. I mean, because we had Marino, so I didn't have to be real vocal person, but the way you lead sometimes is the way you prepare, the way you do your film study, and then you show up on Sunday. That high school, college, pros. I've always played with some guys that's the rah-rah guy, all this noise, but then when you kick the ball off, you can't find them. So I can appreciate a guy that don't say nothing but let his play speak for itself, versus somebody that's always saying, we need to do this, we need to do that. After a while, that just gets old. So I think that's why they call it pro football. It's we're supposed to be professional. So him saying we got to get together, you got to be a professional. You got to be able to take criticism. And, that's one thing I like about Tua. A lot of times he accepts criticism when it's not really his fault. He'll be like, that's my bad. People look up, that's what a true leader is, this and that. And it just reminded me of something. We got a new head coach at Texas A&M, and everybody's always talking about the facilities, this and that, and blah. We got all this great stuff, blah blah blah. And he said, "You know what? We've heard enough about that. We got to go out here and show people instead of just telling everything what we got, this and that. We've done enough talking. We don't need nobody to say, oh, this person making growth. We just need to go out, get prepared, and say, okay, it's time to make a step. But like Ballgame said, that need to be in-house. We don't need nobody saying this and that and blah, 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 and just go out and do it. And I think that's when you see the impact.
Guys, we got about 500 on YouTube. We got about 1,100 on Twitter watching right now. We appreciate all of you. We're at about 1,600 between both platforms right now watching. We appreciate you coming through. Smash that like button as you do. And let's keep it moving here a little bit. I wanted to talk about, obviously, news that broke yesterday. Jonnu Smith, the Miami Dolphins brought Jonnu Smith in, free agent tight end. Jonnu Smith visited the Miami Dolphins yesterday, and he said the two sides are said to be in contact negotiations. Now, obviously, nothing has been reached at this time. And really, the only further thing on it was Drew Rosenhaus. He was on the Joe Rose show this morning, and he said, and I quote, "I'm quite certain, even though the Dolphins didn't franchise him, that they'll be really aggressive about bringing him back in regard to Christian Wilkins." And we'll talk about that. But in regards to Jonnu, he said, "I think Jonnu is absolutely one of the most attractive free agent tight ends on the market right now. He had a good meeting with the Dolphins. We have had discussions, but that's really the most I can say about that one right now. It's a fluid situation." And he also added, there are other teams involved. So nothing's locked in. We're going to get into the Christian Wilkins thing after this. Initially, let's start off in this. Your guys' thoughts on Jonnu Smith, because, gentlemen, you are talking about a guy who he's physical. He can run through contact. He can make plays after the catch. I mean, hell, you guys have seen the screen game we've had in Miami the last couple of years. Name the last time you saw a tight end in Miami do this on a screen. Name the last time you saw a tight end be able to do that in Miami on a screen. All right. So we're talking about adding a potential low cost, high reward. I mean, he had over 500 yards with Atlanta last year after dipping in New England. And who hasn't sucked in New England the last couple of years? Let's be honest. Hunter Henry and him got signed, and they were like, oh my God, we're going to recreate Gronk, and we're going to recreate Hernandez. And how did that work out? Well, at least no one got murdered. But other than that, you like that, eh? But other than that, I mean, Jonnu Smith is a guy that could come here for a low cost. And I think, again, in this offense, I've been talking about it all season, that is the next key needed to unlock this offense, is a seam threat, is a third option altogether. So let's start off with you, Ballgame. What are your thoughts on Jonnu Smith coming here and how the world works? Went from potentially being targeted by Tannehill a couple years ago to coming around full circle to the new Dolphins quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, if they can work something out.
I don't hate it. I think when I was more concerned about how New England was going to employ those boys when they went out and got him and Hunter Henry, and I was worried about that tandem actually coming to fruition and having a whole bunch of success. But lucky for us, it didn't happen. But I think Smith has still a lot left in the tank, and he's clearly a better pass catching option than any of the guys that we currently have on the roster. Now, I love myself Durham Smythe just because of his story and who he is, but there's a definite athletic boost that you get with Jonnu Smith.
And he's arguably a better blocker. He's just as good or a better blocker than Durham Smythe. I see someone in the comments saying he can't block a shadow. Jonnu Smith is a fantastic inline blocker. Don't get that one twisted.
He definitely willing to get in there and get dirty. So and for most tight ends, let's be clear, there's only a handful of them that really want to commit to the process. But you can't be a starting caliber tight end in Tennessee without having some prowess to run block. So let's be clear on that. And he came from there first. So there's no question in my mind that if that's what's asked of him, he'll step up to the job and do that. It's just a matter of the price tag now. So if he's looking to change the game, and have life-changing money for himself at the expense of the Dolphins, then let him go about his business. But if you want to come in on a, prove it type of deal, well, we'll see what you still got, and we give you every opportunity to work your way to, what's considered to be a reasonable market value contract, then I'm okay with that, because the pass catching seam threat that he would be for us would definitely elevate the offense to another level, because that's one of the, like you said, that's one of the key elements that we missed this last year. You never really miss what you have until it's gone. That's why, Gesicki being gone now at this point kind of like we should have just kept him, I guess. Hell, even if all he could do is run seam routes, It would have definitely helped Tua, and it would have definitely helped this offense. But
Yeah.
you learn, you live and you learn, and now we know you gotta have that. You gotta have that dog at tight end. So I'm glad that they're actually going with looking at a guy that's consistently been able to go somewhere and hold it down, even when he wasn't. Because even Atlanta, the Pitts is the guy, but then you have 500 some yards even behind Pitts. That means you still was hella productive, considering the amount they used. I mean, the amount of usage they had with Pitts. So I'm good with it. I don't, like I said, I don't hate it. And I know there's a lot worse guys that they could be looking at, but he's definitely not one of those guys. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I agree. What are your thoughts, Richmond?
You had me from the time you said he was physical, yards after catch and showing the clip. And I think there's something definitely we missed, like Ballgame said, since Gesicki left. I mean, I think the knock on him was that he couldn't, he wasn't very efficient in the run game. But when you can find a guy like this that checks all the boxes and then can come in and add that dimension that you're missing from your offense, I think it's a no-brainer. I think the key is, like both of you said, is can he fit in what we're willing to pay? Does he fit in that system or whatever like that? But not only, like his agent said, if we're not the only team that's looking at him. So, everybody studies film, this and that. And, like you said, with him not being the starting tight end and then coming in and still getting 500 yards, I think that's huge. But when you can run a tight end screen and get that type of production, I'm not saying he's got to score every time, but he's not going to let the first guy bring him down. That just adds a dimension to where people can't focus on, say, Waddle or you got another guy that you got to deal with that, you can, flex him out a little bit or put him in the slot or whatever. It'd be a mismatch for safety or something like that. So I'm loving everything I'm hearing. I'm glad they even looking or consider bringing a guy like that in. I think it adds that dimension that we're missing to our. So yeah, I like it.
So Drew Rosenhaus also today, he mentioned now Wilkins is not one of his clients, but he did mention one of his clients, and he talked a little bit more about Wilkins today. I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Start off with you, Ballgame. So what he said today with Jerome Baker, and he said, and I quote, his career with the Dolphins may not be over. Now, we know they had already agreed on a restructure or a pay cut. So Jerome Baker's already open to taking less money. It's just a matter of how it's structured, how it works. And then because, he's plugged in with all these players how many Drew Rosenhaus clients are on the Miami Dolphins right now, right? And with Wilkins, what he said was this. Check this one out. It was very interesting. He said it's a hot market, and he's one of the best players in free agency. I'm quite certain, even though the Dolphins didn't franchise tag him, they'll be really aggressive to bring him back. I'm sure they'll be very competitive with other teams. I wouldn't count the Dolphins out. Now, the word that's coming out is $24 to $26 million a year. What I've been telling everyone since the last offseason, the figure I was hearing privately, $24 million a year. And now it's being talked about publicly. It's no longer private, that number. And there were Dolphin fans who would run spaces last year and cry about me and Neil putting that info out there, just couldn't believe it. And now it's a reality. So what are your thoughts on this Ballgame with us being super aggressive with a guy who wants 24 to 25 million, and also as a Jerome Baker supporter, the way you are, potentially bringing him back on a cheaper contract, because it seems more than likely they're open to a reunion, and it's much more of a reality potentially of a reunion with Baker than it is with, say, X.
Well, I said at the beginning of I just don't know where we was going, but you got to have some level of experience and guys that just want to be here because they love the organization, love the team, and willing to just go out there and do whatever is asked of them. Jerome is one of those type of guys. He's not going to flash. He's not going to jump off the charts at you. But what you need more than anything as a defensive coordinator, or hell, as a coach, period, for football, is guys that are willing to do whatever needs to be done to get the job done. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys become divas, don't want to do this, don't want to do that. Jerome's never been one of those type of guys. Even if it was outside his skill set, he at least went out there and tried to give us everything that he had. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I'd rather coach a team stock full of that type of guys than one that's got a bunch of divas that only want to do one specific thing and don't want to broaden their game and do what's best for the team. So, you already know how I feel about Jerome. They can bring him back. I'll be elated if he goes somewhere else and he can get the contract that he covers and that he wants. Then I'll be happy for him as well. I think Jerome Baker is a stand-up guy, and I don't have anything bad to say about him. And in regards to Christian Wilkins, my only issue with paying a defensive tackle $24 to $26 million is that it all comes down to productivity for me. And he is not, without a shadow of a doubt, the guy whose name is ringing in the halls of a guy that, like you say, Christian Wilkins, and then you say Aaron Donald. One just keeps ringing.
Yeah, you're right.
And then when I hear Christian Wilkins, I immediately think running mate Zach Seiler. One and the same. Two, they're the same guy. One just a little more rah-rah than the other. If you look at the stats and you didn't have their names associated with the stats, you couldn't tell me which one was which. You know what I'm saying? And one guy's going to be making $14 million more than the guy that's doing the same amount of work. Like, kill me and shoot me, feel how you want to feel about it. I know people love that kid. I mean, I know people love him. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, for me, it's about what makes sense. And I can't look at Zach Seiler and say to him, hey, man, this guy is $14 million better than you when the stats say otherwise. That just makes no sense to me.
Because then you might create a situation ball game where Seiler wants to rework his deal. Now Seiler wants to rework his deal.
And he should. If Christian Wilkins is going to go and get that type of money, then Zach Seiler has every argument in his favor to say, you know what, I deserve more too because I did just as much as he did. And then some of these categories, I actually did better than him. So now that the Dolphins are putting themselves, to me personally, I would have signed him, tagged him, and then traded his ass to Chicago and got some picks because you can always find another guy to come in. I think you can find, if you get the picks, you can go find you another guy to put in there down next to Seiler, and you can keep the train moving because at the end of the day, it's going to cost you less, and then you can fill some more holes on the team. But you bringing in $26 million for one guy up front for rah-rah this and high energy that, like, but the productivity you're still getting from his running mate, come on, man. That to me, and God knows, don't get me wrong, I love the kid. I love him to death. Well, I can't say kid. He's a grown man now because he's down there 28 years old. But I love him. I love him from day one. But I just felt like when we took him and he was already older, you feel me? When we took him out of Clemson, I was like, damn, he might be a little too old because by the time he's done with his first contract, he can be damn. He gonna see maybe 2 contracts and he out of here. He out of the league type of thing. And here it is again, which is basically the situation we're in because he turns 28 in December.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something like that. So
no, he turns 29. Wilkins turns 29.
29. There we go then. So damn near in the graveyard, basically. You know what I mean? Aaron Donald's a freak of nature. We all know that. You know what I'm saying? But
so
you know what I'm saying? He on the the guy's on the decline, bro.
But there's guys in this draft too. You got Jazane Newton. I don't think Byron Murphy will be there because the rumor is he's going to go in the top 12. I don't think he'll be there. But Devondre Sweat, Braden Fisk, Chris Jenkins, Mason Smith out of LSU. Like, there's guys.
I love Fisk.
Coming to 55. There's guys that you could target at 55 that you could pair with Seiler if you're like,
Fisk. I think Fisk is another. To me, Fisk is another
FSU
Zach Seiler. But he's another Zach Seiler. Yeah. So I don't know, 20 that's just astronomically crazy to me to pay a defensive tackle $26 million, bro.
No, I'm sorry. Nuts. Buddy, it's nuts. Yeah. And then there's options. I mean, there's options on, you could go get a Grover Stewart. He's only going to cost you $10 or $11 million. Sure. And you pair him with Seiler, you're going to probably get decent production. You're not going to probably replace Christian Wilkins, but the goal is to find something damn near close. You know what I mean? So
you could definitely minimize there's a lot of guys out there that minimize the bleeding.
I agree. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts, Richmond, on Baker potentially his career not being done in Miami and Wilkins and the Miami Dolphins continue to be aggressive with a player that's seeking $24 to $26 million a year?
Yeah, I think with both of them, I think even with Baker, kind of talked about it. I think the interest is there. It's just they couldn't structure the deal, and I think even on both of them, I think like even with Wilkins, 24 to 26 million, I don't see the Dolphins paying that. But if there's a team out there that'll pay it, I'm happy for it. Go get it. But I think what they're saying is they're saying everything right because he is a fan favorite. A lot of people love Wilkins, this and that. I think he's a great guy, this and that. But at the same time, I think if a deal like that is going to happen, it'll happen early in free agency. And if it doesn't happen, it's better for the Dolphins because the longer you're out in free agency, the money normally shoots out quick in free agency first week or two, and then everything kind of settles down and this and that. So if he's still out there, instead of saying, well, I can go somewhere else, you might not get the money you want, but at least you know the system there and say, okay, well, at least I can go back, Miami home, finish this. I know the system. I know, everything, this and that. And the same thing with Baker. I think, I don't think Baker's going to be a high priority as soon as free agency open up. But at the same time, the willing, the more you say, okay, I need to get somewhere and secure me some money for me and my family, this and that. So I think they're willing to play the game, like you said, 24, 26. That's a lot. And the other thing they can play is, you're not paying no state taxes here, but I think that number is going to come down if he stays in. And even with them willing to do a 1-year deal, I think that would have probably been maybe around 20, somewhere around there. But I think let him test the market, and if it's not, it plays in our favor, and we can fight him for a more realistic contract. So that's my thoughts on that.
All right, continuing on. I don't know if you guys saw it this morning, but he deleted it. But Robert Hunt started the day off with a nice picture of the Miami Dolphins facility, and it had everyone hoping and praying that he was going to be getting and arriving there to potentially hammer out and sign a deal. It was since deleted. So, man, dreams crushed. I can hear hearts breaking around the world right now. But let's talk about this. Tua Tagovailoa, as I've reported for weeks and weeks and weeks, the Miami Dolphins have wanted to get a deal done with Tua Tagovailoa, but before free agency starts or soon after. David Furones tweeted out today that Adam Schefter said on ESPN that negotiations between the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa on an extension would likely go deep into the spring and summer and get settled by training camp. He reiterated that both sides want to get a deal done. I got some news coming on that for Patreons and channel member with a 3 Takes episode that I'll have tonight. But what are your guys' thoughts on, because I've got a little info on this, what are your guys' thoughts on this potentially dragging out to training camp? This team, they need the cap right now. Now they have restructures they can do with Ramsey and et cetera. They can create a whole bunch of money with restructures and short extensions. But what are your guys' thoughts on this potentially dragging out?
My thought is when reports start coming out like that, I wonder if the agent puts that out there, and I'm saying, to me, that reads, okay, we're going to see, like, everybody's probably waiting on Dak Prescott to see what he's going to sign, this and that. So the Dolphins are saying we're eagerly to get a deal done, but now you get a report come out and say, yeah, both sides are eager to get it done, but it could play out through training camp and all that. And I'm like, well, that don't sound eager to me. So somebody's not as eager as they're saying that they are eager. But I think this agent's probably saying, hey, let's see what, if Dak signs or whatever. I'm sure it wouldn't surprise me if the agents are talking and saying, hey, what you know what I'm saying? What are you shooting for, this and that? And if Dak signs early, he can reset the whole market. So when I hear something like that, I say, okay, let me see what this cat gonna do. Because if he do that, instead of me signing for this, I might be able to squeeze another 3 or 4 million average per year, maybe on my deal. So that's what I read. Robert Hunt, I think he wants to be in Miami, but I don't think he will be there based on, I think, what was the number, 15 million? I think you and Neil were saying.
The number I've heard is 15 plus million, and then
Yeah.
In the same little Combine article that had the L'Jarius Sneed rumors, and that basically said we weren't franchising Wilkins the day before we announced we weren't franchising tag him from the NFL. Fowler and Granziano said that that Hunt, Dotson, and a couple other guys could command $16 million a year on the open market.
Can't do it.
I mean,
you know why I told y'all, you know why it's happening? I'll tell you exactly why it's happening. Because of how the DT market blew up last year. If the defensive tackle interior market's going to blow up on one side of the ball, what do you think is going to happen the next offseason? They're going to turn around and say, if you're telling us we got to block guys who are making 24 to 25 million and we're making 12, this isn't adding up. Because now, think about it, 16 million, that's more than Terron Armstead's making a year right now. Okay, that's $1 million more than Terron Armstead. That's $4 million more than Jackson. They are the reset on the guard market looks like it's going to be more than the majority of high-end tackle money right now. Like, it looks like the tackle market's going to have to reset itself to balance itself out as a higher market than guard, because guard is just this is the new position. Remember last year, we're all surprised about DT blowing up, and the defensive guards now the new one, I think.
You got to be down there. They the ones down there having to deal with Dexter Lawrence and fucking all these other monsters that are down there in the middle of these defenses. Yeah. So, So, I mean, we understand it, but there's just too many holes on this team with not enough money to be able to suffice paying Robert Hunt. I mean, you want to keep him because you drafted him and he was a homegrown guy, but, like, you brought him in and gave him a shot, but, like, 16 million, bro, for a guard.
I think that's another one. I say if these guys that want the money, if they're not signed early in free agency, it plays in the Dolphins' favor. So,
and this interior class, like, I know you guys haven't watched a ton of it, but this interior class, I mean, it's stacked, man. Like, there are options, and there's really no reason to go. Exactly, to get bent over barrel. There's really no reason. I mean, there's guys you could, you could go get I think 21's too high for Graham Barton, but Graham Barton, Troy Fautanu if he falls to you, and then once you get to that 55 pick, if Christian Haynes or Cooper Beebe or Christian Mahogany or if we get a later pick, a third or a fourth, the Mason McCormick or Zach Zinner, or for you Hurricane fans, a Javion Cohen. Like, there's options here. You just saw how Dominic Puny tested out of Kansas, and he's like my 9th guard. And, like, there's options for the interior in this class. Like, don't be strapped to a guy wanting $60 million. And this is coming from the guy who, when we signed Hunt, when we drafted Hunt, I was doing backflips and told everyone he could play at an all-pro level. And I truly believe one of the biggest robberies is he's played at an all-pro level and a Pro Bowl level, and he's just never been given his recognition. I mean, he's our best mauler. You look at the size of that man and how quickly he gets to the second level, and he's always looking for a head to take with him. So, it sucks, but it is what it is at the end of the day, right? This is what happens, right? So, final thoughts before we get out of here, gentlemen.
Hey, my final thought is, hey, we're a week away. I think I'm going to let it play out. I think that's what the Dolphins are going to do. I think they're going to sit back. I think they've already kind of put some feelers out there to kind of say, hey, where we're thinking, this and that. And then, the players will come back with their agents and counter and say, hey, this is where we're thinking, this and that. And, if they think they can work something out, fine. But if not, they say, okay, we'll go test the market. But, the good thing, like you said, Reason, you can go get quality guys in the draft and you might have to develop them a little bit more. But some of these guys, it's not going to take that long to develop. So you got options to where you're not held over a barrel where I got to have this guy, this and that. And it all depends on not only how the Dolphins act, but if other teams are willing to pay that much money for interior linemen. The market's going to be set, like I said, I think in the first week. And if you're not one of those first guys, it filters off. So I'm just waiting to see what happens. That's what I'm looking at.
right?
Yeah.
Like take the comp pick because every time we've had comp picks, Greer's not only got them, but he hasn't overspent to affect them. And with Wilkins, and depending on how much money Hunt gets, you could be talking about 2/3 or a third and a fourth between the two of them.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. So we just
man.
For 2025. Yeah.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Ballgame, before we get out of here?
Yeah, man. I think I'm the mindset of as long as they're effectively making phone calls and trying to do the right thing to bring in the pieces that we desperately need on offense and on defense, then I'm okay with whatever their ultimate decision is. I do believe that the Dolphins have committed to the level of understanding that players are players, but players and quality coaches together is what win you and sustain you in this league now. So I think they've done a hell of a job from the beginning since they brought Mike on of putting together a staff that's all about development of these players and making sure that players understand how to be professionals and how to be the best version of themselves. And I believe that with Weaver coming on board, he's young with a whole new level of energy that's going to reignite these veterans that are on this team and bring along the young guys that we've been so anxiously waiting to see, like Cam Smith and things of this nature. And whoever they add in terms of new bodies is just coming into a good position where they still get an opportunity to continue to building upon their legacy and making a name for themselves. So I'm excited. I have to trust the process at this point because I don't know what's going on in Greer's head, but I do know that Ross wants to win. So all of their efforts are about what can be done to make the Dolphins better. So I'm not going to scoff at anything as long as they don't overspend and put themselves in a bad place later financially. I don't have a dog in the fight with them. It's just a matter of holding on and watching the fireworks. I do believe that they'll get it right though. So
yeah, I think a thing with me, and I think some people are saying goodbye to players too quickly. Because again, we just went over it. There's a good chance Baker or Wilkins or both come back. I mean, we've seen it before, right? We've seen Greer play hardball. Then right before the deadline comes, right before the tampering window opens, the offer gets raised. The offer comes up. Let's be honest. I mean, Richmond can speak to this. These players don't want to uproot their lives and move halfway across America, but you just got to make it worth their time to stay where they're at. You got to pay them fairly, right? Listen, there's just no way in the world I see this team paying $35+ million for two DTs between Seiler and Wilkins. It just doesn't make any sense. And they've already, it's already become public knowledge that the offer they made to him last summer, Wilkins camp came out and said they thought it was a fair offer. So what does this tell you? They want the bag, man. That's where we're at right now. They've already admitted last year we dropped the fair offer in front of them, but they are pushing for that extra $3 or $4 million like y'all were talking about earlier. That's the reality of the situation, and it comes at the expense of the fans in this fan base because they're in love with the player. And this is why we tell you, and we've been telling you, me and Ballgame, since we were on a Tuesday night panel in 2020, put the logo over the player unless that player transcends the logo. If it's a player that's going to bring you 4 or 5 Super Bowls, when but right now, I mean, here's the deal. We can all be sad we're losing Xavier Howard, Christian Wilkins, and Jerome Baker. But how much playoff success did those guys bring us? How many playoff wins do we have under our belt? How many division titles do we have under our belt with these guys? Like, it's not like we're losing Roquan Smith, Aaron Donald, and funny enough, Jalen Ramsey in his prime right now. We're not. So, man, you got to believe in the vision. I think, these moves that are in place, listen, here's the deal. I think they have a vision. I think they have a game plan. I think they have an idea. I think they have targets in mind. Hell, they're already getting to work before the tampering window opens. So I'm confident we'll right this ship and we'll be good for 2025. So guys, do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Listen, tomorrow I am going to be back with Neil Driscoll for Fin Too Deep. So be on the lookout for that. And then we're going to have my latest big board coming soon. And then next week, free agency, baby. So smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. And as always, Fins up all day, every day until Margaritaville sends the cease and desist our way.